Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today is our Wednesday follow-up video where I answer all of your questions and comments from Saturday's video when we put new batteries and the battery cutout switch on the truck. So let's dive into the questions right away. Okay, so diving right in, one of the first comments was about the rail wheels on the truck. Yes, it is a high rail truck. Yes, I have used it in the past for railroad work. I have been a track inspector for quite a few years. I'm also have done rebuild programs on railroads, kind of implemented and worked through from the inspection to running the equipment. I've done all that, but I have not been on the rails with this truck in probably 5 years now because the FRA has decided they want to have a federal inspector in this area who is no better than the German SS. He is a pretty nasty piece of work and really needs to be dealt with, but they won't because we promote the stupid within our government. Anyway, here's the next one. Have I done any locomotive work lately? No, I have not. I have avoided the railroads because of all of that. Like I said, the FRA has gotten to be a nasty, horrible thing. They are not about safety. They're about extorting money. And that is what I've seen with all the short lines and things I've worked with. It's all about the money for them. Writing fines. Did you buy the truck at auction? How long have you had it? What did you pay for it? Well, there's a little more to this. Let's start with the first one. Did you buy it at auction? No. I sought it out. Bought it from a used dealer. I bought it because of the 10-speed and the trailer air. That was why I bought it, not because it had the high rail gear, which I actually rebuilt and had to put it back on because it was cut off, but completely rebuilt the high rail gear. But I bought it for the 10-speed and the trailer air, so I could actually utilize the truck for pulling a trailer or whatever I needed. So I had looked at other trucks without trailer air, and when I found this one with the 10-speed and the trailer air, it was going to be about $3,000 to add trailer air to one of the other trucks, and the other trucks were all 6 or 7-speed. 10-speed is a much nicer deal. I've had it about 10 years, maybe 11 now. What did I pay for it? I'm not going to tell you. That's nobody's business what I pay for stuff. And I like how you address the viewers' questions, comments. Also, I noticed a transformer near your shop. Maybe do a segment on your electrical setup, and did you do the electrical for your business, or was it there when you bought it? I didn't buy the business, I built it. I threw away 20 years of my life to build this machine shop, and I put everything here, built the building, got the equipment, paid for all the electrical. I was single phase to start with, and then I upgraded to 3-phase. All right, next one here. I was wondering about the labels on those batteries not being the same, but I'm sure that you had them right. Positive, positive, negative, negative. Yeah, I did have them right. So when I went and bought the batteries, there were 3 different styles. So what I'm assuming is and these are right from the truck store, truck servicing center, basically. I'm guessing they're rebuilds is what they are. So they cut them open, put new guts in them, new acid, and there's so many different cases out there. The stickers were a little different. The date codes were very close to each other. So that's why I wasn't too concerned. But yes, they are connected, right? They are the same battery, same cranking amp, same group, same style, everything. It's just, yeah, they had different case and different numbers. It was weird, but that's what I could get. That self-fusing tape is great stuff too. I never thought about using electrical tape under and over it. The crescent wrenches, nothing wrong with them in the right application. I actually have a locking one made by Armstrong that I've used for decades. So, yes, crescent wrenches used in the right application. This was not the right application, but as I said in the video, I did it to trigger those who get offended by it. If you're easily offended by a crescent wrench, there's something seriously wrong with you. I'm wondering why you spliced the negative cable instead of just attaching the new one to the frame. Nice job nonetheless. The cable doesn't go to the frame. Not on these. It goes all the way up to the starter, and to get it to the starter is a kind of a pain in the ass. So by just hooking it together, taping it up, that was the easiest option, and that cable was solid. Like, I had chased it through everywhere I could get at it. It's tucked in there. It's tight. It'd be a royal pain to replace that, but it was a solid cable, so there was no reason to replace it. Maybe a splash of matte black paint on the exposed switch parts to hide it even more from the meth heads in the area. Great work. Yeah, I'm going to squirt a little flat black on it, actually. You know, even matte has a little gloss to it and it attracts attention, but flat, you can hide a lot of stuff. And as far as the meth heads, there's a few of us in this county that have made it very clear that if you try to steal from us, you won't make it. And I'm one of them. Those of us with digging equipment don't have problems. This one again is about the why I didn't get a longer cable, so I just explained that. Like I said, it goes all the way up to the starter. It bolts direct to the starter, and then from the starter there's a jumper lead to the block, to the frame, and to get it from the battery box to the starter is kind of a pain in the ass. So it was just easier to do it this way. If ever there is a failure, though, it will get replaced with the full length, but I doubt I'll ever have a problem. All right, this type of video is fine. Maybe somebody will learn something. Did you have someone operating the camera? Notice the pan when you were approaching the truck. That is an editing trick. So I'm using DaVinci Resolve now, and that is part of DaVinci Resolve. You can do a what they call a dynamic zoom. You can zoom in, zoom out. There's some neat features with that DaVinci Resolve. I'm very pleased with it. The editing is going a lot faster with it because it's a more user-friendly platform than the CyberLink Power Director I was using. So it's taken me a little bit of time to get a feel for the DaVinci Resolve, going from CyberLink to DaVinci. But I'm really liking it. I'm really liking it. So that one is all in the editing. The magic of editing. Let's see, this one. When was the last time the truck was on the rails? And I addressed that early on, about 5 years ago. Is a float or trickle charger out? I kept waiting for you to weld that wrench to the frame while tightening the positive lug. All right, so let's address the trickle charger thing. I added a trickle charger. Not that it's needed, because once you disconnect the batteries, you're pretty well safe. I used to run that track equipment, you know, tie inserters, regulators, all that stuff, tampers. You shut the battery off in the fall when you're done working for the winter, and you come back in the spring, you turn that battery on and start right up. And we've had batteries in them machines 10, 12 years, no problems. So, but I did add a charge circuit to it so I can hook up. It's a quick connect to a separate charger that I can take around the property, and I put these connectors on all the batteries so I can come around once a month, plug the truck in overnight, move it over to the boat, plug that in overnight, move it over to a tractor, plug that in overnight. So yes, I do have a trickle charger set up. Not that it is really necessary, that I've found. And as far as welding the wrench to the frame, never going to happen. There was no connection. When I was wiring that all up, I didn't have any connection to ground until I had the cables hooked to that switch and the switch turned on. So there was no chance of that. All right, on the splicing tape, do you use the rubber high voltage tape or silicone acrylic tape? The rubber high voltage tape. That I've had the best success with that, especially on the big stuff on the locomotives, you know, high amperage, high heat, big cables, you know, we're feeding right around 12 to 1400 amps on the high end through them at 600 volts. So pretty high power stuff going through there, and it holds up extremely well. All right, this one is asking about the railroad work I've done, which I've already explained. You know, I maintained a fleet of locomotives for years. I still do work on them occasionally when they call me when there's an issue, but apparently my fixes work because I haven't been called in a while, so nothing's been done, you know, needing fixed. And well, I've been a track inspector. I went to school for it. I'm federally recognized as a track inspector. You know, I fill out all the forms. I've done all the work. So yes, I've done all this stuff. Working with short lines and museums, you kind of need to wear many, many hats. And that's kind of what also over the years have kind of helped keep the business going was doing that on the side too. Have you thought about using a solar panel and controller to keep the batteries charged? I use a battery switch also to stop the computer from draining it down and taking away the life. I also use a USB Anderson connector so you can move them. So I've toyed with the idea of solar. We have solar on our boat, actually, a small panel that maintains the battery. It works great. But for something mobile, I just don't see a purpose to it, especially with the battery cutoff switch. And as you said in there, you use a battery switch to stop the computer. No computer, no problems. Anytime you put a computer on a vehicle, I think that's what kills the batteries. So I've replaced the battery in my Toyota pickup twice since I bought it. And I've only had it about 4 years. So 2 years out of a battery because the computer is constantly on, draining. But my payloader, I bought that about 15 years ago. I'm still on the same battery that was in it when I bought it. The Super M, I've had that about 10 years now, and that's battery's about that old. The VAC, I just pulled the battery out of that this past fall because the squirrels got up under the hood and built a nest on top of the battery and shorted it out. So killed that battery. Trying to think of what else I have around here, but the batteries are all old here in stuff that does not have a computer. So, like I just cannot tell you enough how much a computer is damaging to equipment. So if you got a battery switch, you're in shutting off the battery completely, killing that computer draw, I think that battery will last you a lot longer. All right, here's one. Regarding battery connections, do you ever use dielectric grease on battery connections to hopefully reduce corrosion? Just curious, I have friends that always use it. Good video. So yes, I use dielectric grease. I also use a spray protectant that you spray over the terminals. It seals it, kind of engulfs it and seals it. Anything to keep the oxygen away. I did put a little bit of stuff on these that you didn't see me do it on camera, but I did. There was a little bit on the lugs as I was putting it all together, and the hardware was all stainless steel, so we don't have much issue there. Anything I've done with stainless bolts and a battery setting has never been an issue. But yes, I use a lot of dielectric grease or that corrosion inhibitor protectant. Looks like the tray has a slot for a third battery. Is a third battery meant to be backup, or is it for running auxiliary components? So this truck could have a third battery, and it would be connected just to the starter just like that, but it's not necessary. 2 batteries, yes, in the colder climates, but 3 wasn't, and this is a battery box that would have been on a semi, on, anything with an even bigger motor. A DT466 is not going to require 3 batteries. It ran just fine with 1 battery until it got cold again and it started sucking itself down because of the cold. So it did just fine on 1, but it definitely does need the 2 for the cold weather. So that's why there's a third slot. It's for other trucks. This is just a standard battery box. Did you ever clean out all those metal drill chips in the battery box before buttoning the thing up? Wouldn't want any kind of short going over a bump. Yes, it was all cleaned out. Just things that don't make it in the video. All right, here's another one about dielectric grease. And then I have a couple of offset screwdrivers for locations like that, a flat and a Phillips. I also have, and I went and found them. I had not touched them in 15 years. Not something you use every day. And I came back and finished tightening that up. So that is done. I was actually surprised I even found them. I was actually going to go to town and buy another set because I wanted to get this done and finished. But yes, I did go find those offset, look like a little crank with a screwdriver on each end. I've never used them. I've had them 15 years, never touched them. And the last comment here I want to address, well, maybe second last, was this one was a suggestion, actually. They were saying here to make disassembly even easier on the splicing tape is to put the first layer of tape on sticky side out. It also works well with harnesses to not damage any labels markers. That is a great suggestion because all you're doing, that first layer, all you're doing is making a protective layer so it doesn't bond to that connection. You're just trying to keep it off. So yeah, keeping the sticky away from the physical connection you've made is actually a great idea. I really like that one. So I'll remember that in the future, especially for keeping the labels on. There's times where you're taping over a label or something, and yeah, if you can not have to replace a label, that's even better. So that pretty much answered all of the questions and comments, except for the few people that were absolutely triggered by the crescent wrench. So it's freaking cold out here. I really should go out in the shop, but I do that because it annoys so many people so much that they have to comment. It's like, come on, really? Find something else to complain about. Life is short. So I just go out of my way to make sure I use a crescent wrench everywhere I can. It's for you guys that are so miserable that you have to comment on it. And the one comment he was calling me a hillbilly hick, whatever, hack, you're only using it because you don't have the proper tools. That's not true. I have all the tools. I have a lot of tools. I choose to do that because of people like you. So you brought it on yourself, buddy. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video, got the answers you were looking for. I'm going to get out of the cold. Well, the day I did this was 75 degrees. We got snow the next day, snow and ice, and then it warmed up, it all melted a few days later, and then again we got snow and ice, and then it warmed up and all melted, and it's just been 30s and 40s ever since, and it's been raining here, so thankfully we're getting the rain. We need it for the forest fire hazard is very high right now. But anyway, I'm going to get inside. So until next time, get out in your shop and get it done right the first time.
Too dumb to quit, too proud to cry, still grinding steel under a fading sky. The last machine shop in a frozen hell, just me and a dream I can't seem to sell. Too dumb to quit, too stubborn to die.